The best, most charismatic speakers and influencers know the importance of hand gestures. So if you are wanting to be memorable, if you are wanting to make an impact, using hand gestures are imperative to your success. Whether you are in a social situation, giving a presentation, or persuading decision makers, using your hand gestures will help you handle any situation. Our hand gestures are very important to our charisma. So the more that you integrate your hands into your conversation, the more memorable you become. So I have a few tips here for you today to help you use in your social and your professional situations. For example, let's say that you're at an event and you have a drink in your hand. Now, I know that we want to hold it in front of us because it makes us feel safe and cozy. However, it creates a visual block. What we want to do is we actually want to hold it off to the side because now we have open body language and it shows that we are more approachable. Here's another tip for you. When you gesture, often gesture with your palm up. It also shows this openness about us, this more trustworthiness about us, which is definitely going to help you make a great impression. Okay, so here's another tip. When you're at an event and if you have a cold drink, don't hold it in your right hand because that's the hand that we use to shake. And if your hand is wet and cold, it's kind of gross and doesn't really make a great impression. So when you're at an event, hold your drink in your left hand. Okay, here's a fun fact. Studies show that when you hold something cold, a cold beverage, and you shake someone's hand, that cold hand actually leaves a negative impression on them versus when you're holding something warm, which then makes you come across warm and open. Ooh. Okay, I want to talk about persuading decision makers. When you are in front of a group of decision makers, studies show that the more you use your hands when you talk, the more they retain. So it's actually in your best interest to talk with your hands. Here's another tip. You want to use your hand gestures to bold or underline important parts of your presentation. For example, compare these two. One is with the hand gestures. This is really important versus this is really important. The hand gestures help cement it in their brains. You can also use your hand gestures to show growth or increase or excitement. For example, a rise in sales or an increase in the growth of the company. See how that works? Okay, pointing. I'd like to talk about pointing. Don't point, but if you do, use it with caution. Instead of wagging your fingers like this, which can feel accusatory, just remember those days when your mom would like that. It still makes us feel like we're on the receiving end of that. So if that finger, you feel like it does need to come up, I encourage you instead to take on a different gesture. This will work, this will work. And if you have to point at something, point with your palm up. That'll work. Okay, I want to talk about when you are giving a presentation. What we want to do is, again, use our hand gestures because it's going to just help solidify the words that you are saying to the audience. Now, studies show that people hear between 7 and 45% of what we're saying. That's it. So we also want to use our hand gestures to help communicate the things that we're saying to the audience. Now, you can use your hands to gesture large and small concepts. So the way I like to explain this is imagine that you're holding on to a beach ball, and that beach ball grows larger and larger or smaller and smaller depending on what you're describing. And it can go all the way down to the size of a marble to help you convey the message of size. Now I want to talk about stapling. Now stapling is when we take our hands and we just bring them together like this in front of us. Now this is just a small gesture, but our hands are still spatially expansive compared to how we would normally hold them. The moment we steeple, it shows to the audience that we are one with our thoughts, that we are expressing our truth, that we are not wavering, we are not vacillating for what we believe. We have affirmations that we are standing here in our truth. And it can be very powerful to the people who are listening. Okay, now here's a funny one. We talked about pointing earlier, but I cannot tell you how many people point with their middle finger. Don't do this. I know that there may be somebody in the audience who you'd like to do this to, but it is not going to serve you in any way. You want to point like this, you want to point like this, or you want to point with an open palm. Okay, so one more thing that's kind of fun that I'd like to caution you against, and that is the T-Rex arms. This happens all the time. Here's why it happens. That adrenaline kicks in the moment that you're giving your presentation, and we feel like we need to protect ourselves. So we actually, just like the animals in the wild, we protect our underbelly. So our elbows come in. What that does is it constrains how much air we can get in. It also makes us look really weird while we're presenting, and it doesn't make us appear that we are very open, but more constrained. So when this happens and you become aware of it, open yourself up. Because then now you come across as open and present and relaxed. The last thing that I want to share is this Ricky Bobby video that my 25-year-old daughter shared with me. She said I got to put it in because it has to do with gestures. So when you are in the email, it'll be the last link at the bottom of the email. It's what not to do with your hands when you're gesturing. So watch it. It's funny as heck, and let me know what you think about it. In conclusion, I'd like you to start spending time noticing how you gesture. Just become aware of it during your lower level conversations where there's not really any stress going on. Because in those low level conversations, we tend to naturally gesture more. It's only when the adrenaline hits and we feel crushed and we start to gesture with T-Rex arms or not at all. So just start paying attention to how you gesture and then practice them in front of the mirror so that during those high stress situations, you can pull them up naturally and they are really going to make an impact. I really enjoyed our conversation today about hand gestures. Who knew they were so important? Use them right and they will really make an impact. Pay attention to your emails because I'm going to be sending you some more timely tips and techniques to help you make a greater impact and a lasting impression. And if you want some more tips and techniques, go to owntheroom.co, not .com, .co. And I will see you again soon. Oh, lastly, if you know someone who would benefit from this video, please share the love, send it on. I'd be truly grateful.